Hello everyone. This is not a story for the faint of heart. Today, we will be stepping into the darkness of the most gruesome cases, where evil not only exists, but also leaves bloody and haunting traces. This is Real Gruesome Murder Cases, a series of true stories about murders that made the whole world shudder. If you are ready to face the cold truth and the gruesome corners of humanity, come with me to delve deeper into each case, obscure recollection.
Dad, where are the yams at?
Frankie yelled up the basement stairs.
Behind the peas, son,
Dad yelled back. As Frankie walked to turn the light switch off, he looked over at his father's terrible masonry job that he did right after Frankie's 12th birthday. Until recently, the basement had always been a place Frankie's mother and father never allowed them in. The only things down there were various odds and ends, his father's tools and the freezer next to the pantry. Frankie flipped the switch, putting the basement back into darkness again. "Jenny, did Robert tell you what happened at school other day?" asked Frankie.
No, he never calls me anymore,
said Jenny. As Mom was mashing the potatoes Dad had cleaned and prepped for her, Frankie handed Dad the yams he requested. "Well, I met Susie. She's in my biology class. She also wants to be an X-ray tech. She is so cool," said Frankie.
"Oh, Frankie, another one? What happened to, what's her name?" asked Jenny.
"Rebecca," Frankie said somberly.
"Yay, what happened to her?" asked Jenny.
"I have no idea. She just disappeared. Everything seemed to be going great. Then she just ghosted me," said Frankie. "She probably ran off with someone else. I never liked that girl," said Mom.
"Frankie,"
yelled Robert from the living room.
"come here. I think this is the lion's year."
"Okay, hang on," Frankie yelled back. "Better go and watch the game, son," Dad said. "Yay, okay," replied Frankie. It was Thanksgiving for the Goldsmiths, a real family affair. All the kids were out back with their father, Jenny's husband, playing in the snow. Mom was trying to finish the pies, and Jenny was doing the usual Wordle on her phone. Robert was in the living room watching the game. The usual Thanksgiving chaos. As Frankie went to sit with Robert, there was an abundance of chips, dips, and cakes on the coffee table. "They are killing the Bears," said Robert happily. "What's the score?" asked Frankie. 38-10. It's going to be their year, I swear," said Robert. As Frankie kicked back watching the game with his brother, the kids were on the back deck taking off their snow gear, and Robert started complaining. He was not a kid person. The three siblings were all completely different due to being adopted. However, they were still solid in their bonds with each other, and Robert always kept his opinions to himself. "My name is Frankie Goldsmith. I am here on Thanksgiving telling a story so screwed up, it's hard to tell it without it sounding like a Criminal Minds episode. No, seriously. If I was outside my head, I wouldn't believe it myself. Let's get back to it." Frankie was in college chasing a degree as an X-ray technician. His sister Jenny was the oldest, being in her mid-30s with 3 children. Her husband, James, was a salesman with a local company. He was a good guy who went to work, came home, and enjoyed his simple and organic life.
"Everyone to the table, it's time to eat,"
yelled Dad. Everyone rushed to the table. Mom's cooking was impeccable. This was one of 3 major meals cooked at the Goldsmiths that was off-the-chain delicious. The other 2 are Easter and Christmas New Year's. All the food was great and unique to its holiday. As they gathered around and sat, Jenny's twins, Lenny and Lucy, started arguing.
"I want to sit next to him," shouted Lucy. "No, I am," argued Lenny. "Stop it, you two." "Olivia, you sit next to Paw Paw," James said to his oldest daughter,
Lenny and Lucy seemed to argue about everything. We all settled into our seats and grabbed our neighbor's hand so Dad can say grace, which was one of our family traditions. As Dad began, that's when this story goes from 0 to 100 real quick. Father, as we gather here today, we give thanks to you. Crack. Boom. The front door exploded open, and in rushed at least 30 police officers, fully armed and yelling for everyone to get on the ground. 2 of the officers grabbed the children and rushed them out the hole where our parents' front door used to be. Now, let's pause. You gotta be wondering, what in the hell is going on? Let's back it up just a little bit, like 6 months. We will get back to it, I promise. First, I gotta catch you up some so you understand what the hell is happening. Jenny showed up around 10:30 a.m. to talk to Mom about the new outfits she purchased for Olivia. I was at the table studying for an exam I had later that week. Jenny chatted to Mom about the clothes. Then she started to explain that she saw a TikTok about a cold case that reminded her of a reoccurring dream she had. Mom's face went blank and she asked, "What did you do, Jenny?" "Nothing. What do you mean?" Jenny replied. The room lost all its happy energy as I picked up Mom's vibes. Oblivious, Jenny continued to talk about this TikTok and how she thought it was about her birth parents. "Mom, you said the orphanage told you that my parents were very young and just left me there?" Jenny asked. "Yes, dear. Now enough of this talk. I need to go to the grocery store." "You two lock up if you leave," Mom said. Something was definitely up to something. Mom appeared so rattled as she was fumbling about. She left in such a hurry she forgot to grab her phone. Jenny came over and sat at the table with me. "Frankie, I have to tell you something, but you can't tell Mom and Dad," Jenny said with a serious expression. I nodded and she asked, "Have you ever heard of 23andMe?" "No. What's that?" Frankie asked. "They use DNA to find out your ancestral family tree. I sent off my DNA and discovered that I am from Northern Africa," Jenny said. "Okay, why the sudden interest?" Frankie asked. "That is not important. What is important is that I found out who my birth parents were," Jenny said. "Were?" Frankie asked, puzzled. "Jenny, what is going on?" "Hang on." Jenny got up and walked over to the counter where Mom's phone was and picked it up. She tried to unsuccessfully unlock the phone twice. "What are you doing?" Frankie yelled. "That's Mom's phone." "You are acting crazy." "I got to know for sure, Frankie," Jenny said. Frankie paused a minute, sighed heavily and said, "Try our birth years." The phone unlocked and Jenny started to go through it, and it was all normal stuff. "It doesn't make sense," Jenny said quietly. "Will you tell me what is going on?" "What did you think was going to be on it?" Frankie asked. "Frankie, Mom and Dad kidnapped us," Jenny blurted out. "There is no orphanage. My name is not Jennifer Goldsmith, it's Ada Abimbola. My parents and I went missing 31 years ago." "What? This can't be true. Mom and Dad would not do this," Frankie yelled. "Frankie, I researched it. It's true. I talked to a detective, and we cannot tell them we know. We must act normally. The detective believes there are more children they kidnapped besides me, you and Robert. The police know and discovered who you are too," Jenny said. Frankie knew it was true. As hard as it was to believe, he could feel it. What now? This was all he could think. He walked over and sat on the couch, and Jenny came over and sat next to him, knowing exactly what he was feeling. Betrayal, hurt, and curiosity. Who were these people? "Frankie, we must work with the police," James knows all about it, but we cannot tell Robert," Jenny said seriously. "The police are watching Mom and Dad. They think they are holding another family now. Can you meet with Detective Hunt? He will explain everything to you," Jenny continued. "Okay, now that you are all caught up, what now? Should I leave it alone and just walk away? No, you say? All right, I will finish the story the best way I can, but it doesn't get better. If you're sure? Okay, let's get to it." Just as the two officers brought the children outside, Dad jumped up and ran towards a cabinet. Pop, pop. The police shot him just as he was reaching into the cabinet. Robert kept yelling, "Can someone please tell me what is going on?" I yelled over at him to just do as they say. Mom got onto the floor, and it was obvious by her face that she knew exactly what was going on. The gig was up. As I was lying on the floor, I looked over at Dad, and he was not moving, just bleeding out. I did not feel any remorse. The officers handcuffed Mother and led her out the door. They let the rest of us get up. Jenny, James, and I took Robert over to the couch and told him what was going on. He just sat staring blankly, not saying anything. Life seemed to come to a halt after that. Everything played out exactly like Detective Hunt said, except one detail. They never expected that one, overlooked detail. The police took Dad, or Thomas Dunning's phone, and found evidence of everything. Information and photos of all the children they abducted, the ones they sold, the parents they killed. In the basement, they found the remains of over 40 bodies behind the block wall, as well as a torture chamber. They also discovered multiple storage units spread across 7 states. There was one thing that Detective Hunt could not figure out until this day, right now. As I tell this story, there is one more loose end. What changed 18 years ago? Why did they change their MO? Detective Hunt cross-referenced everything. Who was helping them abduct these children? That is when I figured it out. Well, it was something I just felt. Do you want to know? Okay, I'll tell you. It has been about 6 months since the takedown. This was the weirdest affair Colorado had ever seen. Jenny, Frankie, and Robert tried to move on, but it was almost impossible because their life was now on every news station. Frankie tried moving twice, with the same result. One day, Robert was visiting, and he and Frankie were talking when it happened. Something Robert said caught Frankie's attention, and he knew. The only way Robert could know that was if he was a part of it. Frankie bought a gun for protection, and he tried to act normally as he went for it. He slid the drawer open as Robert watched. Oh no, it was gone. Frankie looked up and Robert motioned him to sit down. The end? Or was this all an obscure recollection? R.I.P. Michael Brent Haddix. I want to dedicate this one to my brother. At 6:30 p.m. Saturday, my brother passed away. He had been battling liver failure for 2 years. Thanks everyone at Reedsy. You guys really are my friends and colleagues. I found writing and left alcoholism behind. This community has been my therapy to keep me away from this disease. I miss you already, Michael. Murder in a dream. Halvar sat in his office, browsing the police file of suspects and cursing his brain for not remembering anything regarding the incident. The doctors told him the blow to his head was severe. It gave him a concussion, after all, and that it might take time for his memory to come back. If it did at all. Hall, without turning his eyes from the computer screen, he waved a hand. "Come in, Siegfried." His assistant walked into the office. placing a hand on Halvar's shoulder. "How are you? Still can't remember anything," he said, scanning the faces of every known criminal in Norway. He recognized a few of them, having captured them himself, but none rang a bell as to whom might have killed two of his friends and placed one in a coma. "He's got to be here somewhere. Hall, you should rest," Siegfried said, placing a cup on his desk. Steam rose from it, spreading an invigorating scent of coffee. "We are looking into every possible avenue. I have to regain my memory," he said, scrolling further. He had to. It was the only way. He must have seen the killer just before the hit on the head knocked him out cold. His mind held the only real evidence they had, the only evidence to help turn suspicion off of Halvar himself. Siegfried sighed and retracted her hand. "We talked to Olaf, the studio owner, again. He said he left the place early that evening and didn't see anyone but you and your friends coming in. Nobody else was scheduled for practice either. The single security camera caught no one else entering the building. That camera's position is awkward," Halvar said, rubbing his eyes. He hadn't slept in a day. He didn't like what sleep brought. The killer could have entered through the back or by the window. "Did Olaf tell you about his back door? How he's too cheap to have it repaired? Anyone could enter. In fact, could the man himself be responsible?" He did complain often about the noise of Halvar and his band playing, even though they paid to rent his studio for practice. "Hall, I can't imagine how hard this must be for you. I know how close you were with them, how much music meant to you. I hope that Bjarka makes it, and I hope you get some rest." Halvar sighed and listened to Sigfrida's footsteps leaving the office. The cup of coffee rested on the desk, smelling heavenly. He turned to say thank you, but his assistant was gone. Instead, he noticed the pictures on the office walls, his formal detective license, a photo with the whole police department for Christmas 2 years ago, and a framed picture of him and his 3 friends playing live at a local festival. 2 of them were dead now, 1 in a coma, the result of some lunatic bursting into the studio and killing everybody. Halvar himself survived by sheer luck, it would seem. "I'll find out who did this," he thought, turning back to the screen. "And no law or moral code can save them from me when I do." He spent the rest of the night searching through the files, as well as his memory, both seemingly void of the information he sought. Eventually, sleep caught up with Halvar, and with it came the nightmare. Each night since the incident, he had been having roughly the same dream. It was almost as if his mind was trying to tell him through dreams what he couldn't remember consciously. Halvar got to relive the murder of his friends every night for the past 2 weeks. He got to see every bloody detail, but never the killer's face. That detail always eluded him, and with each dream, he thought he was getting closer to the truth. Each time, the nightmare would reveal a bit more of what happened. That was if his mind wasn't just making everything up out of trauma. In the dream, he was often in the killer's shoes, after all. But he could never see his face. This night, the dream started as usual. Right in the middle of it, and from the point of view of the killer. Halvar saw himself as the murderer, picking up his guitar and crushing his friend's head with it. They were in the middle of practice and were stunned at the sudden outburst of violence by the intruding killer. Before anyone could react, Halvar smashed the heads of all 3 of his band colleagues with his own guitar. Then the dream shifted, where he could see outside from himself. How he got hit on the head too, by a figure without a face. The prosecutor then ran away, and when Halvar wanted to follow, the figure disappeared into the shadows. Halvar woke up, sweating and breathing heavily. He looked around and noticed he had fallen asleep in his office. The place was dark, no light coming from the hallway. Everyone must have left already. He grabbed a pen and paper and wrote down everything he could remember from the dream, recording every detail. The drawer by his desk was filled with accounts from his dream, and he used them to correlate the event, searching for consistent patterns and hints. As incredible as it seemed, his dreams were the only clues he had. But he couldn't share them with his colleagues. They would never take it seriously. The killer used my guitar, Halvar murmured, comparing tonight's dream with the others. But the last thing I remember was playing on my guitar. Then, nothing. So, whoever did it, I must have trusted them, to let them have my guitar. The evidence found at the crime scene clearly pointed at Halvar's guitar as the murder weapon. It had blood and tissue of all 4 of them on its body, all found on one side, suggesting that the killer used it as a club to repeatedly strike at each one. The guitar's body was solid steel and hard plastic, and it cracked under the brutal hits, but did not break apart, surprisingly. So the killer must have known how strong the instrument was, so he could perform precise strike with it and not have it break in the middle of his assault. That would create an opening for the others to defend themselves. The only person that Halvar would entrust his instrument to, and who would know so much about it, other than his band friends, was Olaf himself, the studio owner. Halvar even once took lessons from the man, who showed him a few tricks on the guitar from his heyday as a roadie. It wasn't rational to think that Bjarka would take the guitar, kill the other 2, attempt to kill Halvar, and then knock himself out. How would he do that? And it was just as absurd to think that Halvar himself did it, as was the unspoken suspicion. How would he swing the guitar at himself? knocking himself out with it. The angles didn't match, but the blood and the concussion did. Somebody else must have been present there that night, and the more Halvar thought about it, the more he suspected Olaf. The studio was his. He had access to the camera. The band knew and trusted him. He did complain about the noise, but was that reason enough to attempt a quadruple homicide? Or was there something else? A form of jealousy against Halvar and the band? Olaf did say that he never had a chance to be in a band, but that it was his greatest wish. Halvar checked the clock. It was something past 3 a.m. He considered, looking at the photo of him and his friends. Then he left his office. Olaf's house was next to his studio. It was part of the same building complex, just on the other side, so the owner had privacy as well as quick access to the place. Halvar sat in his car, parked outside the man's house. There was a light turned on inside. Olaf was the one that found us, Halvar thought. He came into the studio and called the police. In the report, the man said he had heard shouts and how the music suddenly stopped. So he had gone to check. The more Halvar considered, the more sense it made. The man pretended to have stumbled upon the murder scene, to have an alibi. Halvar waited in his car, considering whether he should confront the man, considering if he could even do it. As he waited outside of Olaf's house, the pain in his head from the blow returned. Halvar took some painkillers and watched the window, wanting to catch Olaf in some act that would rat him out. In a whirlwind of thoughts, and with a headache pounding, Halvar must have fallen in a pill-induced sleep, as suddenly his mind was back at the incident. This time, he saw more of it. "That sounds terrible, Hal," Bjarke said, grimacing on the drums. "Are you sure you can play the guitar, mate?" Halvar ignored the remark and focused on playing the solo. They were working on a new song, and it was a pain to get it right. "Sounds to me like he's butchering somebody," Damus, the bassist, commented. "Must be the stress at work, I reckon." They laughed. Typical guy talk. Halvar tried his best, but failed. His fingers were just too slow. The solo too technical and complex. His mind was sluggish, indeed from stress at work. There was a dangerous killer on the loose, and they had finally gotten a lead. Halvar just wanted to relax and let go for a few hours with his buddies. But all he could think of was the brutality of the recent murders. "Hey, we're going to get something to eat," Bjarke said. "You want something, Hal?" "No," Halvar said. "I'm good." He just wanted to get the damn solo right. "All right then," Bjarke said. "But don't you try and steal my roles when we come back." They left. Halvar kept practicing. Then Olaf entered the studio. "Hey, mate," the older man said, wearing his long gray hair in a tail. "Sound like you're having some trouble." "Yeah," Halvar said. "I can't do this transition here. It's too fast for me." Halvar showed what he meant by playing the part at half speed. Olaf nodded. I see. Can I try? Sure, Halvar sighed. He handed the man his guitar. Knock yourself out. I'll knock you out. With my veteran skill, the man said, and took the guitar. The dream then changed to Halvar being in the killer's shoes and butchering everybody, until seeing himself in third person again, being hit by some man with no face. Halvar ran after the man, and this time he caught him in a corner. The man had long hair. Halvar jolted awake. He was sitting in his car, parked outside of Olaf's home. The light in the house had turned off. It's him, he thought, breathing heavily. He did it. Halvar got out of the car and walked to the studio entrance. He had the key, as he and his friends were regulars. It was the little hours of the morning, and there was nobody outside, not even a stray dog. Halvar unlocked the door and removed the police tape, entering the crime scene. He knew that the studio and Olaf's house were connected by a passage for practicality. Halvar used the light on his phone to make his way through the dark interior. If it really was you, Olaf? Halvar hurried through the passage, entering the man's living quarters. He'd been there once or twice when Olaf invited them over for a drink. Building his alibi. Plotting, even then. Halvar crossed the living room and climbed the stairs to the man's bedroom. He didn't think of what his plan was. He just wanted to have a look at the man, to see his murderous face. As he came to the bedroom, where he saw the light coming before, Halvar paused. He heard weeping from inside. His heart pounded like a drum, and he burst into the room. Feeling guilt for what you did, the man, lying under the blankets, jumped up in shock. Halvar turned on the light and noticed he had taken out his gun on instinct. Olaf gazed at him with wide eyes, red, as if from crying. What? Don't deny it. You did it, Halvar shouted, his hand trembling. I saw you. It was you. The man's face was twisted in a mixture of shock and fear. What are you talking about? I saw you in my dream, Halvar said. You took my guitar, and the man was crying. There were candles placed on his windowsill, alongside pictures of Halvar and his friends. The two that had been killed had a rosary around them. He was grieving? What's all this? Halvar asked, pointing at the pictures. They were my friends too, Olaf said. Your band reminded me of when I was young. His gaze focused on the gun in Halvar's hands. You think I did it. It wasn't a question, but a statement. One in which Halvar wasn't so sure anymore. He looked into the man's eyes and saw sadness underneath all the shock and betrayal. I can't prove it, Hall, Olaf said, sniffing. But by God, I'm not the man you should be pointing that gun at. Who then? Halvar shouted. Who did it? Who killed my friends and nearly killed me? He pointed the gun at the man's head. Olaf began weeping. The guitar was in your hands when I found you. Yes, the killer wanted to confuse the forensics by framing one of us.
No one else came or left the studio. Hall, what are you saying? Olaf glanced at the gun again, then at Halvar. Are you here to kill me too? Halvar balked. Olaf pissed himself, a dark spot appearing on the bed sheets. The man was genuinely afraid of him. Halvar suddenly felt deep shame, and he lowered the gun, running out of the room and out of the house. No, it can't be, he thought. If Olaf didn't do it, who then? He started the car and drove back home, where he took a bottle of scotch and began drinking. He demanded from his mind to remember all of it, to remember things clearly, without dreams and illusions. His head began hurting, but he didn't take the pills. They would only distract his mind. Halvar emptied the bottle and paced around his room until he collapsed in a corner and wept for his friends. Once again, sleep took over, his body and mind exhausted. This time, the dream picked off as his friends returned with the food. Where have you been? Halvar asked. They were gone for nearly 2 hours. Bjarka giggled like a schoolgirl. We went to get food. They all had red faces and were snickering like teenagers. Have you been smoking weed? No, Damus said. They snickered some more. Halvar sighed. We were supposed to practice tonight. You should chill, Detective Oyolf, their lead singer said. You can't play that guitar anyway. He turned to the other two. Hey, maybe we should cut his hair. If he can't play, then he's not a true metal fan and shouldn't have long hair. The three laughed, obviously talking gibberish, but Halvar, being frustrated by his stressful job, having to deal with murderers and psychopaths all day long, just wanted to lose himself in the music with his friends, but for some reason couldn't get the creative juices flowing, and had enough. Something snapped. He grabbed his guitar and began playing. The guys turned to him. Whoa, look at Hall. He's on fire. Halvar played the solo with fury. He struck every note on the spot. Yeah, man, that's the thing. Then he came to the hard part. He followed Olaf's instructions and sailed through it, racing to the finale. Seems Hall's been practicing while we were smoking. Halvar's muscles tensed as he got to where he always failed. He struck the notes, one by one, the pick flying over the strings. But his fury was too much. He broke a string, and the guys giggled. Halvar smacked Bjarka straight in his laughing face with the guitar. The man fell over, like a chopped log. Then he hit Damus, who was too stoned to register what was going on. Halvar repeatedly hit the man's head until it cracked, and the guitar strings vibrated from the impact, playing a sinister echo. Oyolf wanted to run away, but Halvar chopped him down by hitting his side first, and then smashing the man's head. Breathing heavily, feeling all his frustration boiling in him, Halvar screamed and headbanged into the guitar's body repeatedly until he collapsed to the floor, unconscious. The dream shifted outside himself and he could see Olaf stumbling upon the aftermath. Mortified, Halvar jumped up on his feet as the doorbell rang. His fists were clenched, as though he still held the guitar, and he breathed heavily, confused. He was at home. He just woke up from a dream. Someone was at the door. Did I really kill them? Halvar ran a hand through his sweaty hair and walked to the door. He took one deep breath and opened it. It was Sigfrida, with 2 other officers by her side, Halvar's colleagues. "Hall?" she said, her voice painful. "Yeah?" he groaned. Bjarka woke up. "We have some questions." Murderer's delight, murderer's delight. Mistress Gale, as she was known, has developed a certain lifestyle that required her to invent methods to maintain it. The woman understood the importance of keeping a job, as she was taught by her elders. Because she engaged in activities that she could not afford by legal means, Mistress Gale exploited other people to supplement her lifestyle. She would steal from the elderly people whose homes she worked at as a caregiver. When tragedy struck her family, she learned to offer her family members a place to live in her home in order to exploit them for their money. When her niece was misbehaving and her sister was not a good mother, Mistress Gale housed her in her home. The young girl's father paid the exploiter to let his daughter live with the mistress of darkness. Exploitation was something that she became an expert at due to her troubled childhood. As a young girl who was sexually abused by her father, Barbara learned early that she could get paid to keep her mouth shut. Since the adults in her life didn't believe the account that she gave the first time that her uncle exposed himself to her, she often would take the money that he offered her to keep quiet. The violence and sexual exploitations that was experienced by Gale forever changed her soul. She became angry, violent, and grew up with a darkness in her that no amount of light could change. When her parents would have alcohol in the home, Gale and her siblings would consume it as an escape from the trauma of living in an abusive home. By the time that she was 18, the antagonist had become an alcoholic. In November of 1980, the death of Lillian Adler, Gale's mother, contributed to her already damaged psyche. Her other siblings had also been abused by the patriarch of the Adler family. But Gale fooled herself into believing that she was the only one. Although one of her younger sisters had begged her not to leave her and the youngest one alone with their father, 23-year-old could not feel any empathy for them. Even at the young age of 23, she already had lost her sense of compassion or mercy for others. Mistress Gale had become her abuser. She developed a God complex and told herself that the world owed her everything. This complex caused her to hate anyone who told her no. The downward spiral into madness made her become spiteful. Abuse and trauma, untreated, causes an individual to suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. When a situation that is beyond the individual's control, the person feels a need to control others and whatever situation he or she is in at the moment. Mistress Gale loved to be in the company of violent men because she had developed a soul tie to them. Whenever other females came around, she would see them as a threat. She didn't have too many female friends. Love to control other women, even in their own homes. On a cold winter's night, Mistress Gale found herself at the home of one of her male friends. The other people that were there were men only, and they were all drinking. Gale thought that she could trust her friend Eugene, but soon found out that was not the case. The men ended up gang raping her, and they paid Eugene to allow it to happen to Mistress Gale. This traumatic event was the final straw for her, and she soon became a psychopath. Mistress Gale had a brother who was what one could describe as a wimpy man. He was easy to influence and never wanted to be in control of his own life. Since they were raised in a dysfunctional home, Henry never developed a sense of self-worth. He wasn't taught how to be an independent man standing on his own feet. Henry learned to depend on his sister and the females in his family. They allowed him to live in their homes, cooked for him, paid his bills, and shopped for him whenever he needed clothing. This codependency was an opportunity to be exploited by Mistress Gale, his now psychopathic sister. January of 1991 came around, and Henry needed new clothes. He gave his sister money to purchase him a new wardrobe, wanting to keep some of the money for herself to maintain her alcohol addiction. Mistress Gale returned home with no receipt, verifying how much money she had actually spent on her brother's clothing. The only time that Henry would stand up for himself was when he was full of liquid courage. When the two siblings became engaged in an argument about the brother's change, it led to the sister going to the hospital via ambulance. While they were arguing, Mistress Gale didn't see the huge, empty bottle of liquor that her brother hit her with. Head injuries causes a change of an individual's personality. With all of the previous drama in her life, there was no way that the main character of this story could be a decent person again. She spent the rest of her life causing trouble and mayhem to anyone in her life. Although her brother was remorseful for what he had done to her, Gale used the injury that she sustained as a way to gain even more control of her brother. When others would attempt to hold her accountable for her actions, he would defend her. She continued to exploit any situation that she could, and when opportunity presented itself, she figured that she could kill two birds with one stone. The father of the family retired after so many years of working as a farmer. He moved into a retirement building. Harry Adler, was a man who couldn't control his own fleshly desires. Not only did he molest his own daughters, drink, and use drugs, he had a gambling monkey on his back. This lifestyle started to take effect on his health. He found himself with little mobility, kidney trouble, and high blood pressure. Deteriorating health didn't stop him from frequenting the gambling casinos of Louisiana. He learned how to utilize the bus system where he lived to get around. While he was engaging in his gambling escapes, Harry also loved to dine on the buffets that the casinos offered to their patrons. The aging father of 7 ate something that didn't agree with the other toxins that were already in his body. He became ill and was rushed to the hospital in Texas. Although he had signed a "do not resuscitate" document in the event that he became ill, his troubled daughter saw this as an opportunity to get even with him and get money from his life insurance policy, enlisting the aid of her partner in crime. Gail developed a scheme to murder her father. When the doctors called the family into the hospital to inform them that it was not a high probability that their father would live, they made the decision to take him off of life support. As the family members went in to see their father for the last time, Leonard, his illegitimate son with his oldest daughter, came out of his room, claiming that something went wrong with his father while he was in the room with him. This turned out to be a lie, because he and Mistress Gail had decided to end his life in the event that he didn't die on his own. This attempt to get money was a waste of time, because he had left his daughter, Carmen, as beneficiary on his life insurance policy. The policy included just enough finances to give him a proper funeral and burial. Unable to prove that her father was murdered, Carmen started seeking God's justice for her father's murder. In 2016, Leonard starting losing the use of his eyes and is slowly becoming blind. Mistress Gail has fallen down several times, down a flight of stairs, and is suffering with pain in her body every day. She is living in an environment with her daughter that she can't manipulate and has to submit to her rules. Witness, she saw him. She saw him get killed. She saw the life drain out of his eyes. She heard his screams of pain. She heard the footsteps of the murderer as they ran away. She felt a tingly sensation course through her. She felt a tight knot form in her chest. She witnessed it all, but no one believed her. Not a soul, but she knew it had happened. Her eyes couldn't have betrayed her. She wasn't dreaming, nor was she hallucinating. The rasping of the man's final breaths and the crimson blood were all too vivid for it to be a figment of her imagination. She was there. She was watching. She was witnessing. She had approached the body, hands trembling. The man lay in a pool of his own blood beneath her feet, his body peppered with bullet wounds. His glassy eyes were rolled back, showing only the bloodshot sclera of his eyes. Her fingers were numb as she had dialed the number of the police. Her breath was shaky, and her voice was uncertain. She told the officer on the phone what had happened. "May I ask what your name is?" The officer had questioned. She responded softly. A moment went by. Her eyes widened as the officer started to laugh. "Nice try. Don't joke that much. We all know murders are implausible." The officer had drawled before ending the call. The phone fell out of her hand and landed with a thud on the ground. What was the officer talking about? She clutched her heart with both of her hands and fell to her knees. What is going on? Her head was spinning. The ground around her started to spin as well. The lifeless body was still in front of her, her clothes and hands now soaked with blood. No. Something was wrong. Something was missing. Why did the officer hang up so abruptly? Why was the officer so ignorant? She stood up and started to walk away from the body. She needed help. She needed to ask someone else. As she turned around, she saw a young man walking by. Her feet dragged her towards him. "Please help! Please help me!" Her cries were loud, and she collapsed onto her knees. The man immediately turned his head. "What's wrong?" he asked, his eyebrows cocked in annoyance. "Please, there has been a murder. Someone has been killed. I saw it all," she begged, her voice desperate and cracking. The man's eyes lingered over her for a moment. He scoffed. "This isn't funny. Joking about death is despicable." He shook his head as he walked away. "Please," she called out weakly, grasping for the man's hand, but it was out of reach, and her hand fell to her side. Tears streamed down her face. They tasted like salt and regret. "Stop. Stop it. Stop crying." She kept scolding herself as she slowly stood up. "Stop being weak. Make them believe you. They must believe you." She hurried back to the scene of the crime. The knot in her chest tightened even harder each time she saw those lifeless eyes. It was as if they were chiding her, tormenting her. She grabbed her phone from the ground, making sure it was still functional. She wanted to call the police. She should call the police. But what if she got in trouble? What if they didn't believe her again? She shut her eyes as pain filled her body. Her words had failed her once again. Her mouth refused to open, refused to fight back. How weak she was. She crumbled to the floor in tears. After all, that was what she was best at, crying. All she could do was cry. She couldn't even stand up for herself, couldn't even prove something. And she hated herself for being so useless. Her mind was swirling with thoughts. She couldn't swallow, nor could she speak. Her throat was dry and hoarse. She still knew she wasn't dreaming. This is real. She is real. It had to be real. But why didn't anyone believe her? Why was she never given a chance? Her breathing started to slow down. Her tears lessened. What if it is a dream? But in my dreams, who am I? Where am I? Her reality felt distorted and warped. Nothing seemed real, yet nothing seemed fake. She reached up, trying to grasp something, trying to find something tangible to provide her some certainty. Maybe she was nothing. Nothing at all. Maybe she was as thin as air. No, thinner than air. As unreachable as the heavens, as unbelievable as the gaping chasm of hell. No, no, she had to stop. No, she knew this was real. She couldn't push the truth away. She still had to face the truth. Truth is something no one can evade. What was wrong with these people? Were they just merely stupid? Or oblivious? Or did they just not care? Why did they not believe her? What had she done to make them so against the thought of murder? She had so many questions, but no answers. But there was only one way to elucidate these questions. Slowly, she dialed the police again, with trembling, frail, bloodied fingers. They picked up. "Hello? I'd like to report a murder," she begins once more, telling her story. "All right. What's your name, miss?" the officer asks. But before she can respond, the man cuts her off with a chuckle. "Just kidding. We don't need your name for a prank." She opened her mouth to protest, but the call ended. Slowly, she pushed herself up, wobbling a bit. She took a moment to stabilize herself, then inhaled sharply. Her eyes were closed, and her face was pointed towards the blue, blue sky. Her eyes slowly opened after a brief pause, glimmering under warm rays of sunlight. "My name," she began quietly, swaying gently with the wind, "is Elora Bathory." She giggled, then disappeared into the shadows of an alleyway, twirling a gun in her hands. The corpse in the village. It was Harper's 21st birthday, and we went out for drinks. My treat, of course. My birthday was a few weeks ago, and we celebrated together in secret, since she wasn't allowed to actually go to a bar yet. We've been friends since preschool. We were always at each other's houses. We recently bought a house in a smaller city of Minnesota. Harper was having the time of her life right now. SAS was dancing with this guy. He kind of gave off weird vibes. But I didn't want to destroy Harper's night by being overly protective. So I just watched them closely. The town we lived in was so small, it gained the nickname The Village. I didn't want to drink too heavily, in case I needed to step in and get Harper away from the guy she was dancing with. She was laughing and smiling. She was just so happy, and I was happy for her. It has been a long few years for her. This has been the happiest I've seen Harper since losing her mom a few years back. Her mother was in a plane crash, and it destroyed Harper. She started drinking and smoking, but I finally got her to stop. It wasn't easy, though. It was super tough. Harper still has those days where she will just lock herself in her room. But I check on her every hour, seeing if she needs anything. The guy Harper was dancing with went to the restroom, I think. So I went to Tall with her. Good birthday so far? I asked her. Yes. Thank you so much, Hadley. The music is awesome and the drinks are very tasty. She replied. I smiled at her and decided to order some food. I ordered Piggly Wiggly fries and a burger for myself, and pizza and wings for Harper. I went back to the table to wait for our food, and Harper was at the bar flirting with the bartender. The bartender was returning her flirtations happily. He seemed sweet enough. He didn't have as much as a weird aura as the other guy she was dancing with previously. The said guy came back and brought Harper back to the dance floor, and I was alert and ready to strike if need be. He wasn't being rough with Harper or anything, but I didn't trust him at all. I have always been the protective friend, and I know I may seem like I'm too protective, but I care about my friends. The sadness on the bartender's face was heartbreaking. He seemed to like Harper really well, but that jerk took her away from the bartender. The waitress brought our food out, and I waved Harper over, and she skipped over happily. We ate our food, and she told me she was ready to leave. I nodded, and we ate, just talking and laughing. But guess who was watching? I tried to ignore him, but that anxious feeling was still there. We finished eating and left. We took a taxi just to be safe. We arrived home, and I helped her inside and to the bathroom so she wouldn't fall over. I left so she could shower, and I made sure the doors and windows were locked. I felt safer being home, but that guy's face and his aura was still haunting me. After Harper's shower, we cut her cake and enjoyed a piece with cold glasses of milk. Harper wanted us to watch a movie, so that's what we did. We talked more than we watched the movie. She told me how she really felt a connection with the bartender. I told her I could sense their connection, and it was a deep one. I told her that I hope they would cross paths again. She also told me how that the guy she was dancing with made her uncomfortable. I told her he did give off a weird vibe, but I didn't want to ruin her night. She told me it would have been just fine if I had mentioned how weird he made me feel. Around 5 in the morning, we decided to go to bed. Harper was tired, and I was tired. so we were ready for bed. Harper had fallen asleep with ease, but I seemed to struggle. I just couldn't shake the negative feeling I had. That guy was still haunting my thoughts. That guy triggered something in me, and I couldn't handle it. I ended up falling asleep, but not without nightmares. They were horrible, gory, and just flat out terrifying. I woke up all sweaty, and my heart was racing. I have always had nightmares, but these were worse. I didn't wake up until 1 the next afternoon. But Harper was awake, and she was very cheerful. She was making us lunch. She was a very good cook. She was humming and dancing around the kitchen. I guess the only thing she really needed was that party last night. Maybe we'll go shopping today after I get woken up and I eat. Harper was making her famous burritos that she loves to make. They were always so good. I still had a dot to give her, but I figured I would give it to her later. I got to the kitchen and greeted her with a smile, and she smiled back at me and went back to cooking. After we ate, we went shopping together, like old times. I worked the night shift at the hospital, so I didn't have to be in until 7 tonight. We went to the mall and stopped in Bath and Body Works first. We wanted some candles. Our place still smelled new. We got some perfumes, lotions, and body wash. We got the lot. We probably shouldn't have, but we're girls. Our next stop was Hot Topic. That was our all-time favorite store. After we spent money there, we went to Rue 21 to buy more clothes. After our shopping spree, we went home and I got ready for work. I told Harper bye and that I loved her, and I headed to work. I clocked in at 7 p.m. and started my duties. It was a long night. Morning arrived slowly. I clocked out at 7 a.m. and drove home after stopping at Starbucks. I stepped in the house, and it was quiet until I heard Harper scream. I dropped the coffees and rushed upstairs. That's when I saw the guy that was dancing with her last night, and he had his knife to her throat. I tried to stop him, but that only led to me getting a slashed hand. My best friend got stabbed that morning. I called 911, and they said they would send someone right away. Harper died before the ambulance arrived. The guy's eyes were nothing but a black abyss. He wasn't human. I tried for weeks to get the cops to keep the investigation open, but without any evidence, they couldn't give me closure. That guy got away with killing my best friend. I constantly wish it was me that got killed, but it didn't happen that way. The guy wasn't from this realm, but people would think I was crazy. After all, demons don't exist, right? Well, I knew they did now, and I will forever remember that morning. My best friend was killed. Fall of the stars. The heavens glittered with stars as the man silently drove over dirt and gravel. the 1,000 twinkling eyes mocking his desperation, muttering a curse under his breath. He slowed down at the rusty security gate at the entrance of the abandoned mines. To an ordinary person, it would be a half-broken gate with just a couple of night guards sleeping their shift away. But then again, the average person wouldn't notice that the old equipment was strewn about almost too cleanly, or that the uniformed guards lacked an identity or a logo, or how a cold eye glinted from under the angled cap, a sleek gun pointed at any approaching vehicle. Private security, good. He smiled. He'd expected nothing less. He rolled down a window and casually brought up his right hand to scratch his stubble, flashing them the tattoo on his arm. One of guards came over to inspect it, shining a flashlight right in his face. Satisfied, he nodded to the other one, and the gate opened. The newcomer growled at them as he drove past. The guards didn't blink. He took the car to the mouth of the mines and parked it aside a vintage piece, tossing the keys inside when he got out. Won't be getting out in this ride, that's for sure. He took one last look at the night sky. The stars still winked at him. I'll show you, you damned twinklers, he thought. And then you and your glowing arses can collectively burn the fuck out. He walked in and took the narrow elevator down, fixing a crick in his neck to look at the small black camera from the corner of his eye. The caged door opened into a tunnel entrance sealed long ago. Dim light and vulgar music blared from within. The tunnel widened into a narrow hall within, a despicable den of sin. Sellers had set up their wooden stalls on either side, sporting wares of all kinds, and catering to the needs of anyone bold or foolish enough to venture within. A place fit for the lowest of low-life scum, the kind who'd kill their own mothers for the right price. Everything in the hall was as good as Eden's forbidden fruit on earth, attracting a number of fools who'd end up unconscious in dirty alleys, pickpocketed at best, missing an organ or an appendage, if not sporting a slit throat at worst. The market and its dealers had been thriving in the sealed mine for almost a decade now, and he had no doubt that even the poorest of these merchants could have half the law enforcement in their pockets. He grunted. Hell, half the buying and betting crowd out here was law enforcement. Drugs, flesh, poison, weapons. They themselves would know where best to find any product being sold in the dark hall. The man sighed and jammed a hand in his pocket, pulling out a pack of gum. He looked it over with a frown and popped one in his mouth, tossing the rest in a makeshift stall with a wink at the seller. Let him pore over hours, wondering what's so special about it. He allowed the thought to bring him a dry chuckle. Visibly relaxed now, he cleared his thoughts and covered the tattoo on his arm, lest it be discovered by someone who carried one of its counterparts. He'd thought about this evening too much to spend it in a petty black market fight, ignoring the purrs of a woman offering him the finest opium and a merchant sporting priceless stolen jewels. He made his way to the guarded room on the other end, where once again a discreet flash of his ink admitted him within. A flash of white greeted him on the other side. White tiles decked the room, save for the ceiling, which held a long mirror across the length of it. Across the table from him sat a red-faced man in a puff of smoke, cigar in one hand and a wicked blade in the other. A host of monitors beside him. Eye of the market. He leaned forward with his mouth split in a grin, rivulets of sweat running down his temple into his short-cropped white hair. "Welcome, my friend. Mr. Rasut, I presume? I'm Gwadiskvi. We spoke via our mutual contact, who sadly passed away today." He took his visitor's hand, shaking it and nodding. Tragic, really. But you know how it is. I was hoping you'd stop by this week. Give us a chance to talk in person. Yes, a conversation has been long due. The man called Rasut replied, pulling his hand back. He remained standing. "Now, my friend, we are friends, yes?" "I would offer you a cigar, but unfortunately, I do not yet know if you are a friend. Let's save the cigar for later, then. A question for now. I heard from our friend Rihake you were taking an interest in the pits. You ask many questions, my friend." I must know now, because I dislike having to answer so many questions. Do you intend to partake in any way at all? Place a few bets, maybe indulge yourself in a match? Perhaps you'd like me to fix one for you, if only you're first to get you a little start? Say so. And we have a deal. I don't want to place bets, Gwadiskvi. His host's eyes narrowed, his smile faltering. Then you will understand. There are steps to be taken. We must be cautious about our little venture. You misunderstand, friend. He spat with a smile of his own. I wish to fight in the pits. The red-faced man barked a laugh, hurling his cigar across the room. Well then, my friend, we must drink to that, he shouted. I knew I liked you the moment you walked in. He poured out a strange green liquor in glass mugs kept behind his desk. Come, Mr. Rasut, we drink to victory, to living forever and battering one's enemies to death. The man called Rasut raked a hand through his dusty hair, clenching his fist at the drawn-out conversation. I do not drink before a fight. I will, however, take a whiff of your finest snow. It is a cold night, Mr. Rasut, and you are a bold one. He sniggered. My new friend, a man of taste. The man called Gwadiskvi obliged, immediately sending for his finest of the drug. He invited his guest to sit across him and talk. "Come then, tell me." He grinned. "What brings you here?" Rasut tilted his head, starting. He was cut off. "Please, do not insult my intelligence. I'm curious." The other man leaned forward. "I truly am. Why would a man like you resort to this?" He stared across the table icily. "You don't know me. Don't pretend to. But surely someone such as you would have noticed the shadows trailing you, yes?" A giggle. "They've been watching you. The way you walk, the way you talk, the much concealed desperation in your eyes." Maybe I have a death wish. But that's not the half of it, my dear Mr. Rasut, is it? His watery eyes gleamed, sending a shiver of revulsion down the addressed man's spine. Having a death wish doesn't have to be personal, he said quietly. "Oh, but coming here always is." His drug came, and he consumed it, courtesy of the house. He rolled his neck, grasping at his colliding thoughts and the clarity he now had. He pulled out the battered old pocket watch. A half hour still remained before he'd fight. The man called Rasut suddenly realized that he was talking and stopped, visibly shaken. He found himself staring across at his half-witless host, who beseeched him to continue. "You were at the bit where you had the epiphany after giving up your old ways, when the fighting was over. Go on then." He considered for a moment, then shrugged. "No harm done. Screw it. It wouldn't matter after tonight, anyway." When it struck me, he spoke through the piece of gum still in his mouth, "how much the stars and I are alike." Gvadiskvi hummed in appreciation. "How poetic for a man of your bearing. But do tell, how so?" "It's silly, really, but also true." He snorted a scoff, waving his hand airily. "When they die, it's got to be a cosmic carnage, or no one knows cares, because otherwise no one would know when they die." The other man spoke through a puff of smoke as he lit another cigar. Much like battle veterans and mercenaries such as yourself, eh?" "Yes, and the natural way is too mundane." He tasted the word on his tongue, and how morbid it felt. "So, I thought, why not die in a carnage and make people care?" "Care?" Gvadiskvi went silent for a long moment. "Do you truthfully think the people he..." "Enough to place bets, anyway," he retorted. The elder man undid a button on his shirt, rolling back his shoulders. "Fair enough. You want to bring business to me. Who am I to refuse? My violent friend?" A bolt of lightning went up his spine, and Rasut tilted his head. His host noticed it. "Oh, come on. I've been running the pits for 9 years now. How many of your kind do you think I've seen?" He huffed a laugh, thick smoke momentarily covering his face. I lost the count from not caring, Mr. Rasut, if I ever was honest. And you're simply another face in that pile. Men like you only like violence. Do you know why? He looked at him, very still, because it's the easiest thing to do. He continued, twirling the knife in his hand. So you go about your life, with violence as your creed, until suddenly, one day, you realize that you're all alone. So, what do? He said nothing, as the eyes across his bore into his own, with a cruel smile. You turn on yourself, becoming violent to life itself, hating your existence, and desperate for the bittersweet mercy the idea of death offers. Gwadiskvi looked into his eyes. And so, you turn to men like me. Like I said, Mr. Rasut, I recognize people like you. I think you'll find some kindred spirits in here this evening. Try to be merciful to them a little. He finished with a twinkle in his eyes, feeling uncomfortably vulnerable. He rode on a surge of blood and vaulted over the table in a blur, grabbing Gwadiskvi to whirl behind him, the knife now in his hand and held to his host. If you claim to know my motivations so well, then tell me, friend, he spat. Why don't I be a gentleman and grant you some mercy right now? The Mara laughed softly, feeling his own blade digging into his throat. I am trying to be polite, Mr. Rasut, but if you move that knife 1 inch closer to me, I will rip your heart out. Besides, we both know that you'd rather put on an impressive display. If you are so adamant on dying, Rasut released him, taking a step back. The pits are crowded tonight, Gwadiskvi remarked, with the eyes of a predator. Our old friend Rihak picked you a good night to fight. The fighting pits had been emptied, and a large area cleared for the closing event of the night. It was sparsely decorated, a handful of oil drums scattered to provide cover, and a few low-hanging bulbs as the only source of light in the wide hall. The crowd was brimming with nervous energy, with people shoving each other for the best spot to view the last fight without falling inside. Rules of the arena were clear. A single step in and you were fair game. The audience silently parted as its supreme benefactor glided through. Aitanpar Gwadiskvi, the man who ran the pits, and every piece of low-life scum that haunted the mines. He raised his arm, holding a glass of exquisite liquor, and the world fell silent. Greetings, children of the pits, he boomed. I have a special night in store for you. The matches till now have offered but a slice of the excitement to come. He looked at those who would fight now, spotting them in the audience. No life is better than half a life. Tonight, the 6 individuals gathered in the arena share more than blood brothers do in a lifetime. They share this thought and are willing to fight to the death to prove it. They are the superior people amongst us, for these men and women have looked into the eyes of desire and stared it down. Riches or luxury, a good, quiet life, that's too much to ask of them. They live for the combat, and for the combat they willingly die. Most of them, anyway. He trailed off. The crowd cheered. The man nodded and continued. We are graced with our weapons master, Mr. Black, offering us the chance to witness his latest wares in action. The crowd went wild, shrieks and whoops filling the air as the said man joined Gvadiskvi, completely decked in black, only parts of his face not covered by his wide-brimmed hat or sunglasses visible as his lip burst in a cheery laugh. He waved. Tonight, I bring to you. He started in a deep voice as the crowd went silent. The only functioning prototypes of my latest gun. A tranquilizer coated with poison from deadly toads. And from my herb garden, highly flammable, although one wouldn't need fire for them to do their job. A slight graze could end a grizzly's life, to say nothing of our own. Up for auction next week. Murmurs streaked across the room as Gvadiskvi continued. To make it more of a challenge, each of the fighters are equipped with a gun, good for 2 shots. No other weapons. Look closely, for if you blink, you may miss it. But mind your eyes. He. At a signal, 6 figures stepped in the cleared area. A lithe figure prowled in, carefully eyeing her opponents. The woman had a vicious smile plastered on her face, tracing a finger up her leather-like body armor. My new guns will go well with the gear. The other woman grunted and flicked her the finger. A thin man slicked a tongue over his teeth, filed into sharp fangs. We'll see about that, doll. 2 other men staggered inside, either drunk or badly beaten up recently. Rasut was handed his gun as he weighed his options. Oil drums for cover, low-hanging light bulbs, a stale piece of gum in his mouth, and a gun with 2 rounds of poison within. He nodded, taking a deep breath. In mortality lies my victory. In victory, a worthy death. Till my last breath, the carnage will not stop. He looked up in front of him. The carnage must stop. Tonight, then, death is life. A bell rang without warning, and the crowd roared as slivers of crimson flew all around, spraying up a shower of blood where they struck. He moved in a flash, ducking past a couple of darts and backhanding a light bulb. Those nearest to him flinched, momentarily blinded. Those 2 died first. He shimmied up, behind the loud-mouthed girl with the protective gear, swiftly shooting at the unbalanced man across the room. He was dead before he fell, the dart buried in his eye. Grabbing her by the hair, he smashed her nose on the oil drum, and she cried out, instinctively raising a hand to her face. He snaked a hand into the side of her neck and snapped, snatching the gun out of her hands even as her body fell. He ducked as a barrage of darts flew past him. Pressing his back against a drum, Rasut peeked to find the other drunk or injured man already dead, while the man with the razor-sharp teeth wrestled with the bulky woman. Their guns tossed a few feet away. So much for that momentary truce. He spied the light bulb near him, still swinging. He grabbed it with one hand, pulling out the chewing gum with the other, and sticking it on the bulb, recoiling when the hot glass burned his finger. At least this will go quicker than I anticipated, he thought as the glowing bulb twinkled like the stars outside. Damned twinkler. He moved quickly, moving behind another oil drum, as he fired twice at the one directly beneath the bulb, then tossed the dead girl's now empty gun at it for good measure. A thin spray or oil spurted from it, steadily growing into a tiny fountain, leaking oil that quickly spread across the floor. This caught the attention of the woman, who had finished crushing the throat of the thin man and pummeling him to death with her fists. She grinned, going for the two guns at her feet even as he leaped, and the world froze. In that moment, Rasut saw everything. The horror on Gvadiskvi's face, the victory on the woman's, the final moments of the mine as he shot at the light bulb which burst apart, flames engulfing the oil, and boom! The next day, all the papers talked about the mine. Blow up. A gas explosion, they called it. The official report said that no one was around when it happened. No one got hurt. The cleanup crew moved quickly, doing multiple sweeps and gathering what they found before loading the bodies in a truck to be taken away and incinerated. Yet no one noticed a single hand twitching still of the dead man who would still live, outliving his own carnage. No one noticed the mouth speak obscenities in broken whispers, cursing at himself, at the stars, and at life itself. Pretty, yet deadly. The warmth of it all was intoxicating. Her heartbeat went crazy as the blood was trickling down her face, onto her chin, and down onto the marble floor. Why did this feel so good? Why was this easier and easier? Addicting. The crowd cheering made her feel the world spinning around her, like that one time she tried drugs. Would this be just as hard to give up on like the drugs as well? The constant craving for that feeling, but not the aftermath. She wondered what the aftermath would feel like. But for now, there were still 4 more people she needed to worry about before she could think of tomorrow's reality. Standing over the corpse, Alex just now noticed the gruesomeness of what she did. This was a hate fight as well. All that mocking in the back rooms, all those invasive touches and stares that made her feel violated. Growling, she smacked her head with her foot, the crack of her bones making Alex almost gasp in pleasure. She was dead, and this was her punishment. Now her pretty white dress that Kira mocked her for was stained red with her blood. A strap was ripped. But she didn't care. The pretty girl won, turning towards the crowd. Her eyes were sparkling with adrenaline, euphoria taking over her as she smiled bright and bowed before skipping off the stage. This wasn't the contest she signed up for, but it was the contest she was going to win, no matter what. "Good job, sunshine," Damien muttered as she passed by him, smirking. "Thank you, kind sir. See you in the finals." With a wink, she passed him. She knew he was going to win the next fight, so that made the two of them. Going back to her changing room, people were already waiting for her, ready to clean her up, prep her hair, and change her dress. But the blood was going to stay untouched, just like any other small wounds. It was their medal to go in the next round. Alex wasn't used to any of this, especially this type of medals that showed their passing. Usually, it would be a pin or some tacky golden star. This was nothing she prepared herself for, and from the introduction, no one was specifically prepared for it. If they had the luck in their life to get in any physical altercation and win, that was a plus. It all started with some pretty faces, nice bodies, and preppy clothes. But this was so much more now that she was so deep into it. As she left herself in the hands of the people in the room to take off her clothes and take care of her, she couldn't help but wonder how she came this far, how she started to enjoy that gruesome stage that was now bathed in blood, the lights all over them, the masked crowd enjoying every second of it. 2 hours ago, there were 20 people. Now there were only 3. Her long red dress with a slit down from her thigh, down, low cut, both back and the front, was long gone. Alex loved that dress, and she loved how it showed off her curves and long legs. But now it was long destroyed. Glancing over to the side of the room, on a rack, there laid all her torn-up dresses that she wore since all started. Whoever won was going to have their battle clothes sold. A token of this contest. The money going towards the winner. The thought of people buying ripped up and bloodied clothes made her wonder why people would spend money on such things. But she soon realized why. All those dresses were now tied to a battle, to a crime, and success at staying alive, being the hunter, not the prey. A token from the battles and a piece of the contest itself. They were still calling it a contest, not just a fight until death. If they wanted help in the last round, they needed to win the hearts of the crowd, voting each round on who would win, and then at the end of each fight, keeping scores. It was a system from 1 to 5. They revealed what would happen at the end. The one that got the highest rating would mean they are the public's favorite, which would bring its benefits. Not sure of what that meant, they knew it must be something good, so they needed to put on their best face, even as they killed brutally. Some of them sadly forgot this was a contest in the end, and the votes counted, so Bruce ignored it. He thought only of the end goal, killing everyone in order to survive. The crowd wanted foreplay. They wanted dirty fights, but with fair chances. The girls never fought against the boys, not until the finale round. They wanted the thrill of a long, bloody fight, hearing them growl and cuss with each new wound, with each new bruise and cut, seeing them fight for their lives, seeing the growing desperation as one of them realized this could have been the end, and tough decisions were going to be taken. Bruce wasn't aware of it, and snapped the opponent's neck in a matter of seconds. He saw a weak point and took it, finishing it all without giving the crowd what they wanted. The silence after that was morbid. No reaction from anyone, just Bruce in the middle of the scene, arms spread, wanting to challenge the world itself, feeling invulnerable. What he didn't know was that no one liked that, and they were ready to challenge him back. Red buttons lit all over the room. Alex could swear that she saw those red lights flicker inside the crowd's eyes, thirsting for the blood they didn't get. He got one from everyone. If just one person would have given him another score, he could have survived. But those were not the rules. Tied up, every participant still alive was meant to wound him, not fatal, but in an appealing way that would make the crowd tremble in pleasure. That, or they would join his faith. Whoever had the highest score in that round would get the best prop for the next round. Kira won it by being her slutty self, yet she still died. Looking at the dried blood under her nails, the image of her nails dragging down on Kira's face made her shiver. What did she become? From the first round lamb, she now became a cheetah. She was fast and agile, thanks to the years of gymnastic her mom forced her into taking when she was 6. It was now paying off. What would her mother think of seeing her like this? Knowing her little baby killed and killed and killed? Maybe she didn't have to know. All was good. She was alive, and she could be hugged by her mother away. A long, nice bath, washing away all the blood, and together with it, her sins. She would go to church. She would wear her most modest white dress and braid her hair like her mother did ages ago when they would go there. "You are good to go, princess." The woman smiled gently towards her, just like a grandmother. Kind eyes and deep wrinkles next to her eyes when she would smile. She looked so out of this picture, and yet she was the one that cleaned the blood off and nurtured her wounds. If she could look at her with this kindness, even after knowing and seeing all she did, her mother will as well. She loved her, her little angel. "This is suiting." Alex exhaled as she stared at herself in the mirror. An angel. Another white dress, long and flowy. A pair of wings and a sparkling tiara. The blood wasn't even bothering her. It looked like a second skin now, a piece of her, something that she shall never be able to wash, always seeing it stain her in the mirror. The next thing she knew was that she was back on the stage, face to face with Damien, dressed as the devil itself, black shirt and burgundy vest, shiny shoes and black pants, tiny red horns on his head. He was beautiful, she had to admit to herself once again. And if this was a normal contest, she could imagine herself at the end of it, with him at her side, arm around her waist, both winners, prizes in their hands. A pretty image. But there was going to be just one winner, and the prize would be their own lives, still being alive. "You look angelic." He laughed, his fingers gently tracing her face in the eyes of the crowd. Smiling, she placed her hand over his, keeping it on her cheek. So warm and gentle, making her insides wrestle inside of her. The thrill she felt as she won. But those long fingers were going to soon strangle her, digging deep into her, wanting her dead. "You look devilish yourself." She smiled as she placed her hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat so close. She didn't want this. She wanted to be done with this bloodshed. But it was her or him. Getting close to him, their lips gently touching. She gasped as he kissed her back, his hand on her neck, pulling her closer. This was what the crowd wanted, right? A show. To see them suffer. For them to feel their pain while they weren't losing anything. A love story would make this so much better. A cliché. But it was a cliché because people enjoyed it, always watching it. Kissing harder, she moved her hand towards her wings, detaching one, grabbing tight. Before she left the dressing room, the showmaster brought her another pair of wings, congratulating her on her scores and her new prop. One glance towards the old lady, and she realized what it meant. She saw her assemble the wings. So now she did the opposite, cutting her hand on the blade, grabbing tight on it, and lifting her hand, she stabbed the wing deeply in the back of Damien, just as he used one of his horns, stabbing her in the back as well. Both collapsing on their knees. Neither of them stopped the kiss, becoming just more intense as the crowd gasped. It was just a matter of time of who would bleed faster, who would turn cold. They were going to die in their own way, and they were going to wait. My first case. Aurelia location. My office room, 14/5/21. So 900 a.m. I was sweating, not due to the heat. I was shivering, not because of the cold. It was all fear, nervousness. I saw myself in the mirror. My chocolatey brown skin glowed. My face seemed like a scared child. A woman in her 30s was standing at my door. Her face was pale, and her eyes were brimming. I felt Jack's presence in my room, so I tried to act normal. He touched my shoulders. "Are you sure you can do this?" I took a deep breath. "Yes, I can." But actually, I wasn't confident. I let the woman inside my room. She said, "My husband, Victor, wasn't picking up his phone. I checked his lab, and he was lying over there with blood all around. Please help me." I was noting everything in my diary. I looked up at her face again. "So what's your good name?" She whispered, "Galena." I stared at her. "So, ma'am, is your husband alive, or?" Location: Chem Tech Lab, 14/5/2021, 09:45 a.m. He was there, lying lifeless on the floor in a pool of blood. We wore our rubber gloves. The lab was such a mess. Whoever did that was clever enough to leave no clue. Our team examined the body and sent it for post-mortem reports. Jack stared at me. I got closer to him. "I got this note." He had it clutched in his hands. He patted me. "Okay, continue." It wasn't a note. Rather, it was a page from some kid's counting book. There were few numbers circled in it, and most of the words he had written on the page were either blotted due to sweat or soaked in blood. There was something scribbled, and next to it was written in a terrible handwriting, "Feel." That did ring a bell. Jack peeped into the paper. "What is it?" I replied, "I guess it is feel, an archaic word for faithful, or maybe Fe is iron, Al is aluminum." Galena interrupted, "No, it's Felix Allen." I got curious. "Who's that?" She glared outside the window. "He's Victor's best friend, colleague, 10 years younger to him." Below that, there was blood, and the only thing I could read in between, that was Nikum. "And Vier?" Jack asked. "Aura, what is Nikum?" I took my eyes off the paper. Probably it's a surname. One of my classmates had it. I moved to the surveillance room. Galena followed me. This room is incomplete. There's nothing to check here, lady. Victor hasn't installed the cameras yet. After sealing the area, we met the watchman. Sir, you were supposed to be on duty last night. He nodded his head. Yes, ma'am. I walked closer to him. So what seemed unusual last night? He replied, Nothing of that sort, ma'am. As usual, Victor, Sir, and Felix had a terrible fight. And yes, he was the only one who came here last night. He tried to avoid eye contact with me. Galena came up. Victor and Felix fighting with each other doesn't surprise me. And she went away. Location: my office room, 14/5/2021, 3:00 p.m. I slowly asked, Jack, how was I doing yesterday? He chuckled. Like how beginners do. The post-mortem report arrived. Jack glanced at me. Aura, what does the report say? I responded, Nothing unusual. Cause of death is hemorrhage. Time of death is 02:47 a.m. He sat beside me. What did you derive from the bizarre note? I took a sip of my coffee. I've given the note to Elena to find out the order of numbers he circled. Through the past ink detector, Elena entered the room with her usual radiant smile. Here you go, Aura. I and Jack peeped into it. The numbers he circled were 66, 57, 7, 8, 74, 68. I made funky faces. What is this? Probably this guy went nuts before he died. Jack stared at me. The only one who's going nuts is you. Listen, beginner. See, there are 10 digits. Probably this is a phone number. Unable to control my curiosity, I dialed the number to check. It said, This is Felix. I'm busy. Leave a voice message. I felt so embarrassed, even though it was my first case. Location: Felix's house, 15/5/2021, 8 a.m. I knocked at the door. I was nervous, excited, and don't know what else. The door opened. A man, probably in his 50s, stood there. He wore short floral trousers and a white, crumpled shirt. May I know who's this? I beamed. I'm Aura. Aurelia. Don't you remember me, Uncle? I'm Felix's college friend. He smiled back. Yes, I do. Look, girl, you've grown up. I chuckled. Felix was in his room. And what surprised me was the room consisted of both Akara Nikom and Dylan Ower. I felt like it was turning from an investigation to a reunion party. Felix was too in shock. A positive shock. He hugged me. Oh my God, this day is too good. A few minutes ago, I was telling these guys how upset I am for you weren't here, and He asked me to take a seat. I'll get you something to eat. By the way, Dylan and Akara got married. You know? They're working with us. I reminded myself I had some work over there. I went inside Felix's kitchen. Phil, would you mind if I stay here with you tonight? I need to talk something in private. He beamed. Yeah, sure. He got too excited. Back in his room, I looked all around. Akara said, So how's life going for you? I chuckled. Oh, it's crazy. What about you guys? What are you guys working on? Akara replied, This project is supposed to be confidential. I joined this group just last week, as soon as I got married to Dylan. He is the one who introduced this to me. I owe him a lot. Dylan chuckled. Don't mention it, girl. Everybody in the room had wide smiles. Location: Felix's house. 15/5/2021. 10:00 a.m. The day was almost over. Dylan and Akara had left. I felt butterflies in my stomach. Felix was so happy. I was afraid what I had in stock for him would blow away his sunshine like a smile. But on the other hand, what if he turns out to be a venomous snake? What if he was the culprit? All such thoughts were passing in my mind. He sat close to me. Hey, I too have a lot to talk with you. Where should we start from? I frowned. Why are you whispering? He looked embarrassed. I don't know. And he pulled himself a little bit farther from me. We stared at each other for a second. And then he started. You used to say you wanted to become a detective. Did that happen? I sighed. Coming to that point, I am a detective now, and I'm extremely sorry to tell you that Hector is dead. He chuckled. Come on. Your pranks are seriously outdated. I was gonna say that you've changed, but you're still the same. I showed him my ID. Phil, I'm serious. Your friend died day before yesterday. Tears started to drip from his eyes. Are you serious? I nodded my head. A minute later, I asked him, how frequently did you and Victor fight? He softly said, I need a break. And he went off to the balcony and wandered. He came back. I repeated the question. He sighed. Every time we met, we used to fight a bit. Sometimes for fun, and the other times seriously. But the last time wasn't my fault. He was the one who slashed his knife at me. He pulled his shirt to show his blood-stained bandage on his stomach. When I started bleeding, I left the room shouting at him. I stared at him. So, you mean to say you did nothing when he slashed the knife at you? He went on weeping. I had stopped talking to him for a week. And then that day, I went to sort out our issue. And he did this to me. I bit my lips. The watchman heard you guys fighting. He said you were the only one who met him last night. His eyes reflected fear. I don't remember seeing any watchmen over there. He shoved his head into his hands and went on weeping. He slowly rubbed his right hand on his old cut mark on his left wrist. I asked him, "I know it hurts a lot, but what was the fight about?" He was still rubbing the cut. "I don't know. He was hiding something about the project, and I almost did everything in the project, but he never paid me on time. Or maybe he never paid me. I was struck in a terrible financial situation." He went on weeping. I thought maybe this played as a motive to kill him. Location: Chemtech Lab, 16/5/2021, 09:30 a.m. Back at the lab, I met the watchman. "Hey, good morning. What else do you know about Felix's and Victor's fight?" He waited for a second and said, "Well, you know, lady, they fight for the silliest thing in the world to the most serious thing in the world. Felix would frequently threaten to quit the project if he wasn't paid. He never understood that Victor was too in a financial issue. He wasn't able to pay his daughter's fees." I asked, "Anything else?" He thought for a moment again and said, "Few days before they fought, Felix stole the money Victor had for paying Irina's fees. He said it was an emergency. Victor was very upset because they suspended his daughter from school for a month." I nodded my head. "So was the fight verbal or physical?" He didn't waste a second. "Physical?" Galina gave me the key to the lab. "Hello?" I asked her. "If you don't mind, shall I ask you something?" She nodded her head. I started. What kind of relationship did Felix and Victor have? She shifted her hair falling on her face. "Victor used to treat him like his own brother, but suddenly things started to fall apart." I then asked her, "What about Dylan and Akara?" Galina replied, "They're cool. They've joined recently. Victor told that if the project was compatible with these guys, then he would no longer need Felix." I roamed around the lab and started feeling thirsty. So I walked myself to a nearby shop, leaving Jack in the lab. I asked for juice. He passed it to me. "So, ma'am, are you the one investigating Viktor Antonov's murder case?" I nodded my head. "Yes, I am the one." He came near to me. Don't trust the watchman over there," I whispered. "Why?" He said, "Madam, that fool is a booze head. He drinks every night and goes to the backyard of the lab and lies down there." I was like, "Okay." "What?" I quietly came back and whispered into Jack's ears. Now I was very confused about what to trust and what not to. I checked the lab for more clues. Galina asked us to join her for lunch. Location: Victor's home, 16/5/2021, 11:30 a.m. As Galina was preparing lunch, I roamed around the house. I met his 14-year-old Irina over there. She was in her room, sad. I went to her. "Hey, Do you want to paint? She said, no. I knew what she was going through. I sat beside her. I know it's hard. She turned towards me. I was thrown out of the school. Gradually, Felix stopped taking my tuitions, and now Dad is gone. She wept. I told her, we'll find out who did that to your dad, and we'll put him in jail. I asked her, what kind of tutor was Felix? She blushed. Who? Felix? He was great. He used to take my math tuitions. I don't know. The last few days when he took my tuitions, his eyes were red, and he was pretty distracted. And in the middle of nowhere, my dad pulled him to his room and smacked him badly. I never knew why. Galina came to the room, pulling Irina, and whispered, don't talk about that idiot in our home. There was a strong motive for Felix to murder Victor. He faced a series of depression during his college day, and when he came out of that, he came out violent. I found an unposted letter over there. It was from Victor to Felix. I tried to read it, but due to Galina's presence, I put it into my pocket. Location, Felix's house, 16/5/2021, 3:45 p.m. His father asked me to wait in Felix's room while he had gone somewhere out. I found another letter in his home. This was probably 2 months old. I took both of the letters and read them. It was written in 50% English and 50% Russian. The Russian part was written in English fonts. There was nothing new, while the whole letter said that he was sorry for what he did. There was nothing he could do to help Felix. But the last 2 lines struck me. It said, Never nikom, mene ochen zal. Don't trust anyone. I'm really sorry. I tried to match it with the note clutched in his hand. It was never Akra Nikom or Dylan Ower, with only half of the spelling visible. But I felt, if he had mentioned it in this note, too, did that mean Victor was gonna take revenge for his murder with that note? But that would be really melodramatic to write sorry, and all while you die. I looked at the letter even closely for clues. That's when I found out. The scribbling before feel meant ask feel. I smiled. I said to myself, Ora, he probably wanted the finder of his body to ask Felix about something, or maybe he wanted us to question him. I could hear Felix's voice and footsteps. I put the letters in my right pocket and the note in my left pocket. I already had a note, too, where I had arranged those numbers in order. He was still in the same condition. He smiled, but not from his heart. I tried not to waste time. Feel? What are your comments on this note? He slightly glanced at it. That's my phone number, but the commas are crazy. In between them, I sighed. What would it mean with the commas? Suppose you find this number somewhere not related to you. He pulled that note from me and stared at it. He constantly mumbled to himself. After 5 minutes, he said, If I went by the element's atomic number. 66, 57, 7, 8, 74, 68 would mean dysprosium, lanthanum, nitrogen, oxygen, tungsten, and erbium. I stared at him. And if we go by its symbols, then di-la-n-o-w-er. His eyes were filled with horror. Jack called me. Hey, Ora, Achara is murdered. She just died a few minutes ago in my arms and told me. I interrupted. I know the rest. Just come to Felix's house and give him protection. I'll catch him. We'll find out the why after that.